And, you know, not to say that return on ad spend is the final metric that you should look at. But I know a lot of clients ask, oh, I want my return on ad spend to be this, my return on ad spend to be that. You know, that's great. But also zoom out of the equation, right? You could see conversion value over cost as one thing, return on ad spend as one thing. But what if you have a 5 return on ad spend and you're only getting 200 in conversion value? That's no good. So also understanding maybe the lower the return on ad spend is, the higher in conversion value or sales, that's more attainable as opposed to an astronomically high return on ad spend. And then you're suffering in bottom line sales each month because you're so obsessed with one metric. That's just return on ad spend. You're not looking and seeing, wow, my return on ad spend is, 20 or 20,000%. But then again, I'm only getting $50 in sales. What's up, everybody? This is Gene from the PPC Cave, and I just wanted to greet everyone, and it's only me, just because we're a little bit busy in these last couple of weeks. Me and Ryan have had, just busy with clients, and, we want to provide value to everybody, so we're doing it in a way where, he'll take an episode, I take an episode, but we will be reunited soon enough. Don't you worry. To all 52 subscribers on YouTube, don't worry, we will bring both of us back together so you get double the value. But we have had a new series that we've kicked off as of last week. If everyone remembers, Ryan created a solo episode. Basically, it was lead gen campaign overview, where he just took a look at a couple things that he usually audits for a particular lead generation client, and he did a wonderful walkthrough and did a really great job with that. So if you haven't taken a look, make sure that you do go on our YouTube, because that is a walkthrough, and that's best looked at on YouTube because you will actually be able to see what he's talking about and looking at. But for this episode, we continue our new series of Google Ads for beginners. And in episode 2, we're talking about e-commerce ROAS explained. So in the first episode of this series, it was more of a lead gen campaign overview. I think it's very important for us to provide actionables in this series, as our last series was really high overview, very long. And, it could be confusing just because we're going through everything as a foundation and fundamental baseline of campaign types and whatnot. But this particular series, Google Ads for Beginners, is going to be very much more actionable and very specific. So today we're talking about e-commerce ROAS explained. And first, we'll go through and explain how to calculate return on ad spend. And for me, I like calling it, conversion value over cost. Conversion value means either your purchases, your revenues, your sales, whatever you deem as conversion or success within your Google Ads account. I know this could be different for lead generation. If you're particularly looking at an opt-in, how do you measure success for lead generation is different from just purchases and sales for e-commerce. So this is more so e-commerce return on ad spend explained. I know maybe for lead gen it's a little different. Maybe you're looking at CAC, or customer acquisition cost, or customer per acquisition, CPA, whatever it may be. But this is return on ad spend, hence the title, e-commerce return on ad spend explained. So for example, what we said is conversion value, or purchases, divided by your cost, or how much you spent on your ads. So for example, if you had a $2 purchase or sale or conversion value, and you spend $1 in ads to get that, to attain that, that means you have a 200% ROAS, or for me, I like looking at the dollar value, a 2 ROAS. The percentage would just be, multiplying that by 100. Obviously, you get a percentage. So if you spent $1 in ads or budget and you got back $2, that's conversion value is 2 divided by 1 your spend. So you get 2, and then you multiply that by 100, which is 200% ROAS. Like I said, I like looking at the dollar value because it's basically another way to look at conversion or cost per conversion. You can look at it at a dollar value. And for e-commerce, it's really important for us to be able to look at both, right? E-commerce numbers are important because you're going off sales. I mean, every business is, but for me particularly, I like to look at it in dollar value. So you would hear me referring to conversion value over cost a lot in this episode because that's how you get the dollar value for basically the same thing as return on ad spend, but return on ad spend is just percentage. Defining this is important, and making sure that you can fine tune this is important. It doesn't matter if this is a new campaign that you're creating for e-commerce or a campaign that you're auditing. It's really important. This is probably the first thing that I look at, is all the ads or all the campaigns. I look at conversion value over cost or return on ad spend, just because you can see what's profitable, you can see what's not profitable. For every particular campaign account, you're going to have limited resources. So you're going to have a particular ad spend that you need to be under. No one that advertises has an unlimited budget. So you have to be able to justify the budget. And for you to be able to justify the budget, you have to look at return on ad spend. And the biggest thing that I guess a lot of people don't really touch on, in my opinion, is you could see return on ad spend from an account level. So you could see if you go into your account, click view all campaigns, particular overview of the last month or last year, last 30 days, 90 days, whatever it may be. You could see that from account level. All of your campaigns, return on ad spend, your search campaign, your display, your PMAX, your shopping, you could see all that from an account level. You also see return on ad spend on a campaign level. So for me, if I'm auditing a new e-commerce account, looking at, okay, what is providing us a positive return on ad spend, conversion value over cost, and what isn't? I could see that on a campaign level. Obviously, if you stay on a search campaign or on the shopping and search with Google.com, those things are very high purchase intent, mediums of advertising on Google Ads, meaning people are on Google.com, which the intent is higher there. If you factor in a Performance Max campaign, it could be still a high return on ad spend, but you'll have more irrelevancy there, it being surfaces across Google's properties such as YouTube or Discover or Gmail. So obviously, maybe the return on ad spend on those campaigns are going to be a little bit lower. So it's really important as a baseline to understand this return on ad spend metric, frontwards, backwards, upside down, every way basically that you could cut it up, slice it. You have to understand this like the back of your hand, because it is basically the baseline. It is the fundamental of, understanding, is the account profitable? Are these campaigns profitable? Where do we stand? So yeah, you could look at return on ad spend from an account level, campaign level, and even ad group level. If you were to look at a particular search ad group, you could see maybe the brand search term ad group has a higher return on ad spend, or your high funnel margin, or your high margin ad group has a better return on ad spend. And note, a little bit of a tangent. Obviously, if you have a higher premium of a product price, say you have $100 products and above, compared to a $20 product, that's going to yield you a higher return on ad spend because you're starting with a higher conversion value if there is a conversion. $100 conversion is going to be easier for you to get a 2 or 3 ROAS because the ad spend can be higher, as opposed to if you have a smaller or less expensive product, starting at like $10 or $20, then you're really going to have to turn out the volume to get that return on ad spend higher. And you're going to really make sure that your cost or your ad spend is low so that, like I said, you could get that return on ad spend higher. So these are the two factors of basically ROAS is the conversion value. If you have a higher price point, then your naturally conversion value could be higher, but there's also lots of different other factors that go into cost. That I won't get into this time. We're just talking about return on ad spend for e-commerce here. And we really want to make sure that we understand that we could look at ROAS from an account level, campaign level, ad group level. More granular than that is product level. If you're running a manual shopping campaign, or if you're running a Performance Max campaign, you could see the products that are being pulled from Google Merchant Center to your particular ad campaign, if it be shopping or if it be PMax, and you could go under products and you could see the particular products within your product groups or your ad groups that are converting pretty well at a low spend, right? And if you look at the conversion value over cost for specific products and you see one particular product that has a very low cost in a particular set date, maybe last 30 days, maybe the cost is $2. You see the conversion value of just those $2 in the last month is maybe astronomically high, like 30 to 40, X, 30 ROAS or 30,000 ROAS basically, right? Then you see that there is probably some advantages to make sure that that product is being shown more, or those search terms attached to that product are being shown more, and this is something that hasn't been talked about a lot because we see return on ad spend as basically a campaign, level, I guess, metric, but you could look at return on ad spend and conversion value over cost at a product level, and see which products you could toggle up and down with spend, especially if you're a manual CPC, you could do this easily. You could see the products and you see the search terms that are attached to that products that have converted, and you could be like, okay, well, let's add, attribute more of the spend to these particular products or these particular search terms. You could see it also on the ad level. If you're running search campaigns, you see which ads have a higher conversion value over cost or return on ad spend, and maybe you need to create more ads or themes that are more similar to that particular ad that is, doing really well with conversion value over cost or return on ad spend. Or even getting more granular, you could look at ROAS from a search term and keyword level. Ryan loves doing manual CPC, and I use it too for sure. I just usually work with accounts that maybe are at a point where I don't need to do manual CPC. I usually do manual CPC if it's a account that hasn't ran any ads before and I need to get qualified traffic in there. I'll do manual CPC. But if you love manual CPC, this is great for you to really look at the return on ad spend on the particular search terms and keywords. We're seeing, for example, Jordan 12 black. That search term particularly has a maybe like 400, 500% ROAS. Well, you're like, okay, well, maybe we need to make sure that this particular search term is being attributed more of that manual CPC budget as opposed to Jordan, 11 blue, because Google Ads and advertising and marketing in general is just really about making sure that we're providing budget to what works and taking budget away from what doesn't, right? And what better metric or what better way to qualify that by, understanding fully what return on ad spend is and where we could see return on ad spend, in Google Ads, which you could see it all the way down to the search term and keyword level. And this is really important. A lot of the times, we look at other metrics, right? A lot of vanity metrics where we look at impressions or CTR. But for me, if the account is mature enough that it's getting conversions and high conversion volume, more than 20 a month, you're in a prime uh, position to really utilize return on ad spend as a metric. I'm not saying use it immediately as a bid strategy, target return on ad spend. We'll get into that a little bit later. But I'm more so just taking the metric, standalone metric from the account level, campaign level, ad group level, product level, product level or ad level, and the most granular search term and keyword level. And if you really want to get into it, you could look at conversion value over cost or ROAS from a state level, locations. You could look at it from a device level, mobile, desktop, tablet. So this is really a huge theme to understand because you'll see it ever in Google Ads, and it's a really good way to move from a vanity metric of impressions, clicks, CTR to really understanding what converts, what works, and what we need to pour more budget into or maybe decrease the budget on because the return on ad spend isn't where we want it. Another way to look at return on ad spend or conversion value over cost, especially if you're a business owner. I've kind of talked more about this from a client, freelancer perspective or agency perspective. But if you're a particular business owner, you want to understand, okay, is the business profitable? Or where my numbers are at. I can't stress that enough. It doesn't matter if you have your own eBay store. It doesn't matter if you're, not eBay, but if you have your own Shopify store, it doesn't matter, what you're selling. You have to understand as a business owner, is my Google Ads efforts progressing or is it, declining? What better way than to really dive into your return on ad spend from a more holistic perspective? As I mentioned before, return on ad spend consists of conversion value, sales, purchases, whatever it may be, conversion value over your cost, your budget costs. And if you're a business owner, you really want to make sure that that cost might span more than just top level ad spend. What I mean by that is particularly, say you sell on Shopify and you want a little bit more of a granular cost or granular return on ad spend. Instead of just taking that base level ads cost, say, for example, it's $2, or let's just say $100. Say it's a $100 sale, right? But there's a 2% selling fee on Shopify off top. That's a variable attached to the particular cost of what you sold. So say if it's a $100 sale and you really want to understand more of what return on ad spend really is, you can start adding variable and fixed costs to that cost portion of the equation. As I said, conversion value over cost. Usually it's just return on ad spend. But if you're a business owner, maybe you really want more of a specific lens to really see if your return on ad spend, is what it is. At the end of the day, you want to get to the most accurate, depiction of how it looks when you get a sale from Google Ads, and if it's really profitable. So, for example, a regular return on ad spend calculation is your conversion value of $100. You sell something that's $100 over your cost. Say your cost is $50. So you sold something that's worth $100, and then your cost to basically get that sale through Google Ads is $50. Your regular return on ad spend would be 2, multiply that by 100 to be 200% ROAS. So that's pretty good, right? But if you really want to get granular as a business owner, you'll add that 2% selling fee to the actual sale. So let's back it up. You have a $100 sale. You add that 2% Shopify selling fee. That's $2 because 100 times 0.02 or 0.02 or 2% is $2. So add that $2 selling fee to the other side of that equation under the cost of the ads cost. So it's $50 ads cost plus a $2 selling fee. So you have 52. So if you divide it by 100 and then the cost is with the selling fee is 52, then your return on ad spend will be 1.923. You're saying, Gene, why do you have to get granular like this? Why do we have to do this? Well, maybe you don't if you're a freelancer or a client, but what if you're a business that only has $20 or $30 each month, or not each month, that'd be ridiculous. $20 a day, let's say, or $10 a day. You have a small budget. You're starting off as an e-commerce store. Well, you need to be able to account for all these things, So return on ad spend is a great baseline because you have conversion value over cost. But if you want to get more granular, you want to get more to the bottom number of what you're actually seeing in cost, you could add, selling fees. If, in this example, adding selling fees to the cost, and then divided by conversion value over, cost, as in selling fees plus the ads cost. You're really getting more, a better visual of what you're taking home as a business owner when you play around with the return on ad spend to really understand, are we profitable? Because it might just be another 2%, but those 2% add up really quickly. And as a business owner, one of the pitfalls of small business owners is not identifying their costs accurately. I don't know why I can't say that word. So that's a different way to really look at return on ad spend. And, not to say that return on ad spend is the final metric that you should look at. But I know a lot of clients that ask, I want my return on ad spend to be this, my return on ad spend to be that. That's great, but also zoom out of the equation, right? You could see conversion value over cost as one thing, return on ad spend as one thing. But what if you have a 5 return on ad spend and you're only getting 200 in conversion value? That's no good. So also understanding maybe the lower the return on ad spend is, the higher in conversion value or sales, that's more attainable, as opposed to an astronomically high return on ad spend. And then you're suffering in bottom line sales each month because you're so obsessed with one metric. That's just return on ad spend. You're not looking and seeing, wow, my return on ad spend is, 20 or 20,000%. But then again, I'm only getting $50 in sales. My conversion value is only $50. So, there's always multiple metrics and things that we got to look at as a PPC manager, as business owners running Google Ads. But it's more than important to understand that return on ad spend, is a very, very important metric that you could dress up and dress down. You could add selling fees to it, any variables. Even if you want to add, maybe you sell everything with a $5 flat rate shipping, right? You have $5, that's your flat rate shipping, or that's your cost in shipping. Add that to the cost side of the return on ad spend. And then you'll be able to see more, okay, wow, this is actually, this isn't a profitable return on ad spend. It might be profitable if you don't have that, but it's just because we don't have, selling fees or shipping fees, things like that, embedded in your return on ad spend, doesn't mean that it doesn't exist as a cost for the business owner. So I'm trying to provide two angles here for e-commerce, one from the freelancing side, PPC manager side, and also one from the business owner side, because I know business owners watch this also, that's really important to understand fully what return on ad spend means. And I'm not getting into the bid strategy of return on ad spend. Like I said, that's something that we discuss later. This is more so of the metric and how to use the metric, how to understand the metric fully as a beginner for Google Ads. If you're just starting out in Google Ads, is a really super fundamental metric that you have to understand. It doesn't matter if you're lead generation or in this case, e-commerce. It's super important that we understand this, front to back, upside down, each way that it could be split up. This is very, very paramount for us to really understand. So this is, I guess, a continuation of our new series, Google Ads for Beginners. We want to be more specific and less, long-winded when it comes to these particular topics that we discuss, because we understand Google Ads is a jigsaw puzzle. So why complicate it more with providing longer content? We want to try something newer, do things a little bit more shorter, more concise, more of, just one or two or three different topics, not all these different things that we're talking about, that we talk about. So we really want to make sure that we're providing concise, actionable deliverables. And in this case, really giving you the deep dive in the metric of return on ad spend for e-commerce. If you like our podcast and YouTube channel, understand that we release every Monday at 12 a.m. and subscribe to us. Make sure that you show us appreciation that we're providing this new type of content to y'all, and continuing to do that is, for me and Ryan, very, very important, as not only are we able to showcase and share what we've learned in our own experiences, but we also get reminded with fundamentals and best practices that we need to always employ for our clients or the Google accounts that we handle. So if there's nothing else, I'm not going to say see y'all next time, because I always say that, but we'll definitely talk to y'all next time. Bye for now.